evening. Welcome to the Mount Clemens City Commission meeting. It is Monday, November 16th, 2020. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Campbell.
Here.
Fournier.
Here.
Goodenough.
Here.
Hammond.
Here.
Crop.
Here.
Menser. Commissioner Menser.
I'm here.
Voorhees.
Here.
Excellent, thank you. Agenda item number 4, announcements, acknowledgements, communications, and reports. We'll receive and file our monthly department reports. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, hearing none. Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Johnson?
No, ma'am.
Okay, moving on to adoption of the agenda.
Mayor Kropp, I move that we adopt the agenda as printed.
Moved by Commissioner Voorhees. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fournier. Anyone have any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Campbell.
Yes.
Fournier.
Yes.
Goodenough.
Yes.
Hammond.
Yes.
Crop.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
Voorhees.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to public participation. This is the portion of the meeting where we invite the public to participate. All that we ask is that you give us your full name when it is your time to speak, and that you give us your residential address and you abide by the 3-minute rule. We'll take first names so that we can create a list of those who would like to do public participation, and then I'll go ahead and call on people individually. Would anyone like to participate in public participation?
Yes, Your Honor. George Kale.
Okay, George, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the list. Is there anyone else who would like to participate? Okay, hearing none. George, can you give us your full name, your residential address, and your just be mindful of our 3-minute rule, please.
Yes, thank you. George Kale. Residence address is 19145 Devonshire Street in Beverly Hills, Michigan. Property owner in Mount Clemens at 180 Grand Avenue. I do see that we have a pending resolution establishing the moratorium specific to the Medical Marijuana Act, and encouraged by that. Obviously, we need to get this straightened out and get the ball rolling with our whole medical marijuana and possible recreational marijuana participation. So that looks like a step in the right direction. However, I do have a question as we get ready to move into the issuance of other permits. I had a question in regard to how many permits were granted, not so much authorized as per the ordinance that was passed back in December 2018, but how many permits were actually issued. I understand that some are having difficulties in fulfilling their obligations to the city. And out of those issued permits, did all of them file for their renewals as per the ordinance? And I'm referring, of course, to the medical marijuana facility ordinance number 20.110 that was passed back in December, or adopted back in December of 2018. And the city manager actually now is, I believe, the head of the committee on applications and renewals thereof. So how many permits were actually issued, and of those issued permits, did they all file as per the ordinance their renewal applications with the city? Thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and forward your questions on, and you can expect an answer by the next meeting. Do we have anyone else for public participation?
Yes, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, your name is?
Patrick Abajuda, 138 northbound Gratiot. I vote.
We'll just remind you to be mindful of the 3-minute rule. Go ahead.
Yes. So I was going through the court case that was in reference in the moratorium that you guys are proposing. The only thing that I see that I have an issue with, by all means, if the city wishes to grant or not grant a permit or zoning permits or charge a fee, I'm fine with that. That's fine. That goes through a building process. You know, you get buildings that are outdated get updated, and you know things go up to code. The only issue I have is the moratorium itself, and the moratorium stating for 180 days, which I feel is in correct or direct conflict with the 2008 law. This is what we're discussing, of course, 2008, not the 2016 Medical Marijuana Facilities Act, but this is the 2008 Caregiver Act, and it's in direct conflict with the law itself. So just for instance, I actually have the court reading here in front of me, and it says the MMA does not nullify a municipality's inherent authority to regulate land use under the zoning act, but as long as the municipality does not prohibit or penalize all medical cultivation, like the city of Wyoming zoning did, and this is their case law that they're quoting, as long as the municipality does not impose regulations that are unreasonable and inconsistent with the regulations established by law. So that's the only issue I have, is having a moratorium onto this. Say if someone was to grow and now they have no access to their medicine, a resident, it could be a commercial facility, it could be anyone. So especially residents, if they're looking, this is their medicine, this is direct contact to their medicine, 180 days without it is quite hard to do, first and foremost. So that's the only conflict that I have is a moratorium. If the city wishes to do so, and they can do so behind closed doors or whatever, and get the paperwork done and then present the actual ordinance, by all means, that's great. But to put a moratorium on it, that's the hard part. That's why I feel that's a direct violation of the 2008 law. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else who would like to participate? Hearing none, we'll move on to adoption. We'll move on to number 7, administrative responses to issues or questions raised during previous meetings.
There was no public comment at the previous meeting, so there's no responses.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to approval of minutes, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes for November 2nd, 2020 regular city commission meeting.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Hammond. Do I have a second?
Support.
I have one statement about a correction to the minutes. Does anyone else have any questions or concerns? If I can, during the, sorry, let me switch to it really quick. Under the adoption of the agenda, moved, Commissioner Mentor made a motion supported by Commissioner Goodenough to table the following until the next city commission meeting, public hearing for downtown maintenance program. I voted no. I was a nay.
Okay.
Should we modify our motion as amended? Commissioner Hammond, would you like to do that?
Motion to adopt the amended agenda as presented.
Minutes.
Support.
It'll be the minutes as corrected.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Moved by Commissioner Hammond, supported by Commissioner Campbell. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Fournier,
Yes.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Menser,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Moving on to general business. General business 9A, set date for first public hearing of downtown maintenance program. Could I have a motion, please?
I motion to approve the public hearing on December 7th for the downtown maintenance program.
Thank you. Do I have a support? Moved by Commissioner Menzer,
Support.
Yeah.
supported by Commissioner Campbell. Does anyone have any questions or comments about this?
No, I just want to say I appreciate seeing the special assessment and what's being assessed to each property, and how many pieces of property that some of some of the business owners have. It's very interesting, and I appreciate getting it.
Okay, anyone else have any questions, comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fournier.
Yes.
Agenda item 9B, approve ice arena bond authorizing resolution. Is there a motion?
I move
I
approval
move
of
to
bond
approve.
authorizing resolution.
Moved by Commissioner Hammond, supported by Commissioner Menzer, was that?
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or concerns?
Yes.
Okay.
I appreciate the fact that this was, the annual payments were backloaded. I think that'll make it easier to pay, but I have some questions. So in the resolution authorizing, it says here that the issue shall consist of bonds in fully registered form of the denomination of $5,000 in any integral multiple thereof. So I'm wondering if we're talking about $5,000 bonds and we're talking about $3 million, does that mean that we are putting out 600 bonds?
Hi, this is Jeff Aronoff from Miller Campbell. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Also, my colleague Sean Rucker is attending tonight as well, and I know that Mike Gormley as well. That reference to the minimum denominations is simply that each maturity will be a multiple of $5,000. So a $200,000 maturity would be a multiple of $5,000. So usually the maturity chunks are always in much larger than $5,000 denominations. They're just multiple of $5,000. So you would never have, for example, a maturity that's $203,000 because that's not an even multiple of 5,000. But the actual clusters of denominations will be, 5 and 6 figures each. Mike may have more detail as to what maturity amounts we're looking at, but the bonds will be in much larger denominations. They will just be multiples of 5,000.
Okay, thank you. And I'm confused by this, on page 2 of the resolution authorizing, the 4th paragraph down, it says interest shall be payable to the registered owner of record as of the 15th day of the month prior to the payment date for each interest payment. That sentence confuses me.
Right, so that's standard language, which basically means that if the interest payment date will be on the 1st of a month, but who the interest is paid to, that is the owner of the bond, because the bonds can trade, they'll be trading on the secondary market, and whoever is the registered owner as of the 15th day of the previous month is the recipient of that payment. Now, the fact is, all of the bonds, the registered owner will be the same. It will be an entity called CD and Company, which is a universal bond exchange that then pays out through a computer system called the Depository Trust Company, all of the actual, like what we call beneficial owners, the actual investors that have an interest in the bond, they'll all get paid by really a money moving on a screen. But the reason that language is in there, it's in every bond deal, is that there needs to be a set date that determines who owns the bonds. And you can't determine that on the same day that the interest is paid, because if there's a change in ownership, you wouldn't catch that. So that is really just a date you look for to sort of check the box as to who owns the bond. But the fact is, for the entire life of these bonds, the registered owner will always be CD and Company. And that's just this portal that allows all the actual investors that hold beneficial interests on the secondary market to get paid. The only reason why that would ever change would be if the system for the way bonds on the bond market are actually held, this computer system, would change, and this entity, CD and Company, would go away. In that case, we would change the registered owner of the bonds, and that would be determined 15 days prior to the date that interest is actually paid. But the fact is that virtually every single publicly offered bond is registered in the name of CD and Company. It's just that's sort of the system that allows principal and interest to get paid to one place, and then ultimately ends up in the bank accounts through computer transfers of all the actual people that are really getting the interest paid to them in their accounts. Sorry, that was a very complex, it's a kind of a complicated system, but that's how the market works.
Oh, well, I think I understood most of it.
Okay.
So can you clarify who the transfer agent is then?
I think we have already, did we appoint U.S. Bank, or, hold on a second, let me see if we have in the, Mike Gormley, are we appointing U.S. Bank? So the transfer agent is the financial institution that basically keeps track of who actually gets the payment on the bond. So they're the ones that are, okay, so here we haven't designated a transfer agent yet. There are really only three entities that act as transfer agent in Michigan. One is U.S. Bank, one is Huntington National Bank, and one is Bank of New York. Their job is to basically keep track of this, like these registrations we talked about. They're the ones that basically keep the books of who actually has ownership interest in the bond. So this, everything has CD and Company stamped on it, but CD and Company is not a real person. There are people that are actually getting paid the principal and interest, actual investors or financial institutions that have invested. The transfer agent is the entity that keeps track of that, basically keeps the list of who actually gets paid. And the designation of the transfer agent will be made at the time we go sell the bonds. And I can't remember if we have who the preferred transfer agent that the city works with is. It's either Huntington or U.S. Bank, but it'll be the same for this deal unless we are directed otherwise by the finance director or city manager. So that's what the transfer agent does, but the bank hasn't been named yet.
Okay, thank you.
It's also the entity that we pay.
Yeah, and Jeff, if I could just add.
Correct, that's right.
Bank.
Okay, my next question is I'm looking at the City of Mount Clemens, the next section of the 2020 Capital Improvement Bond Limited Tax General Obligation. When will we know the interest rate, or is that dependent on the bid or dependent on, what Northland has in their thing on page 2? They have an arbitrage yield.
Hi.
Yeah, so Mike, you can jump in there. Feel free.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So we sitting down just this last week with Cliff and Don and trying to rework the numbers. I also informed Don and Cliff that given what we need to do to be in the market, we're now going to probably be in the market, not in early December, but more likely sometime in January after the holidays. So what we've taken is today's current market, or the market, if you would, based upon November 12th when these numbers were run, and we added a quarter of a point to it, 25 basis points, assuming that the market moves away from us between now and the time we sell in January. So it's an estimate right now on interest rates. You're never going to know what the interest rate is until the ultimate day that the bonds are sold and the underwriters bid on them competitively, and assuming that they are all compliant bids with the notice of sale. The lowest bid by true interest cost will win the deal. And right now we are estimating, and I use that word estimating, a true interest cost of around 2.5%. And that's adding in 25 basis points from today's market. Just to see if the market moves, we've at least got something built in that shows you that if we end up in that market. If we were to sell today, we would probably be closer to where we'd be at, less 25 basis points. But just given the timing of putting this deal together, we now know that we will not be in the market until after the holidays.
Okay. And, sorry, I got another one. I'm looking at the document that says City of Mount Clemens, County Macomb. I think it came from Northland, and it is page 1. I'm looking at project fund deposits. It lists boiler, roof, parking lot, rubber flooring, hot water heaters. What I don't see here is the compressor.
I believe the compressor, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the dehumidifier wheel fan. These are all the projects that Mr. Mason had given to me from the ice arena manager. And we had a conference call with him because I told him that based upon his project costs and all of the projects, we would be over $3 million. So what we did was we made the parking lot kind of the plug number. They wanted, let's call it over $600,000 in the parking lot. And the most right now, based upon these estimated numbers and sizing the bond issue up to the not to exceed amount of $3 million in the resolution, gets us that. But let me just quickly look in my notes here. The boiler is what you were questioning?
Compressor. I wondered where the compressor was because we had talked about that multiple times and I just didn't see it on the project fund list.
Yeah, let me see if I made a note when I was putting this together with last week. Excuse me 1 second. Let me see if I have this sheet. I know I have it with me in my folder. I just don't have it readily at hand. I did send these.
I think you've got it listed wrong as boiler instead of compressor.
Yeah, I worded these right off of what was given to me. And I am virtually positive that everything that Cliff gave me when I was there spending the day with him putting together information, this is the way it was worded in the breakout of the projects. And forgive me, I just don't have it readily at hand.
Cliff may have given it to you wrong, but
Cliff has looked at these numbers.
based on the amount, that's certainly the compressor because there's no boiler involved in this project.
I know Cliff has looked at these, and and I didn't hear back from him, so I'm assuming that everything that's listed in there under project fund deposit is the way it was given to me. With regards to what you're referring to, they may be calling it something different.
Okay, I can live with that. I'll go with what City Manager Johnson says.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, and that,
Verify that with Cliff when he's back, mid this week.
thank you. That's the end of my question.
Sorry, I muted myself. Is there anyone else with questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Hammond,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fournier,
Yes.
Goodenough.
Agenda item 9C, adopt resolution establishing moratorium on medical marijuana. Do I have a motion?
Move to adopt the resolution establishing a moratorium on issuance of any and all permit approvals and/or certificates relating to any structures in any zoning district in order to cultivate marijuana as a patient caregiver.
Mr. Murray, did you want to, oh, sorry, do I have a support?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Fournier, supported by Commissioner Hammond. Mr. Murray, did you want to take over on this one?
Yes. In 2008, the voters approved an initiative legalizing medical marijuana. And what that called for, it allowed patients and or caregivers to cultivate medical marijuana within an enclosed lot facility. This moratorium, proposed moratorium, has absolutely nothing to do with the Medical Marijuana Facilities Act, which is the act under which we adopted an ordinance and authorized certain permits to be issued. It has nothing to do with that. This has to do with the original ballot initiative that said a caregiver could have 5 patients and the caregiver could grow 12 plants per patient plus an additional 12 plants for him or herself for a total of 72 plants. What has happened over the years is that municipalities have attempted to regulate that activity and have been rebuffed by the Michigan Court of Appeals, which in the case of DeRuyter versus Byron Township, essentially said that the ballot initiative preempted the field. Municipalities had no right to regulate by zoning or otherwise, or to require permits or fees or anything to do with caregiver growing of medical marijuana. So that is what the municipalities have been operating under for the last several years. As a result, what's occurred is that there have been caregivers who have grouped together and would rent, for example, a large commercial building or a large industrial building, or in the case of more affluent subdivisions, a large home, and gut the home, put 7 or 8 caregivers into that facility, and therefore cultivate 72 plants times the number of caregivers that have come together. And the court said you couldn't do anything about it as long as they were separately fenced in or locked in and had a lock. Well, in April, the case, the DeRuyter versus Byron Township case, it was appealed by the township several years ago. The Michigan Supreme Court issued an opinion in April that reversed the Court of Appeals and said that the Zoning Enabling Act could be utilized by municipalities, as well as they could charge permits and for fees for under the Construction Code Act. So what we are asking is that a moratorium be imposed for 180 days to allow the city administration, together with the planning commission, to review this entire area, decide if there are specific zoning locations where they wish to place caregiver cultivation, and also relative to any permits and or fees that may be required in the future for such things as updated electrical, ventilation requirements, etc. So that's what this moratorium is all about. All of the surrounding communities have adopted or are adopting a moratorium so that they can get a handle on the situation. What's occurred in Shelby Township, for example, they are going to ultimately probably not allow caregiver growth other than for the caregiver, him or herself, in residential areas, because what they've experienced is groups of caregivers buying residential homes, large homes, 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, and 7 or 8 caregivers going into that and doing 72 plants per caregiver. And suddenly you have a house in the middle of a subdivision that is essentially a relatively large grow operation. Other communities have experienced where it has been concentrated in vacant commercial buildings or vacant industrial buildings. So those are the type of things that the administration wants to review, and in the event amendments to zoning ordinances are required, it would have to go before the planning commission, and all of that takes some time. That's why we're asking for the 180 days. But as mentioned at the beginning, this in no way affects a caregiver and patients currently cultivating marijuana.
Mr. Murray, I have a question about, will this, if we were to pass, let's say, zoning ordinances, you know, if the planning commission passed the zoning ordinance and then we decided to pass zoning ordinances, would that then, are there people who would be grandfathered in currently who are already in buildings, or would they have to then apply?
Well, each, you know, as a general rule, they'd probably be grandfathered. There may be exceptions, but as a general rule, they would be grandfathered. You can't.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions or comments?
I have a question. Do we have some of these in Mount Clemens right now, where people have, where there's growers have, caregivers have banded together and
yes,
in residential areas?
I believe community development has experienced some. I know in district court, we had one that we were able to get them to agree in an industrial complex building, get them to agree to disband the operation. But I believe there are some in existence. That's what I hear. And the other thing is, Brian has mentioned, and one of the reasons that we came forward with this is that they are experiencing a number of requests at the present time for increased, for permits for increased electrical and other things that would tend to lead him to conclude that they are for marijuana cultivation.
So these growers that band together and use one home for 4 or 5 caregivers, do they live in this home or is it just?
No.
They just, it's a grow facility, basically.
Essentially, yes, that's right. And that's what the Byron Township ordinance was restricting the caregivers. In their ordinance, they said that it could only be a home occupation at a full-time residence. And that's what was challenged. And the trial court ruled against the township, and the Court of Appeals ruled against the township, both saying that the municipality had no right to control any of it. And that is what the Supreme Court in April reversed and said municipalities can control as long as the controls are reasonable.
Is there any possibility of doing it in less than 180 days?
Oh, sure. That's just to be on the safe side. In terms of, you know, if you put 90 days and you still had planning commission meetings or you still had to go before the city commission, then we'd have to come back and ask for an extension of the moratorium. We just used 180 days to be on the safe side because you will need public hearings relative to any rezoning. You'll need hearings before the city commission. So, but if it's done quicker, certainly an ordinance can be brought. Ordinance amendments to the zoning ordinance can be brought to the city commission whenever they are ready to be acted upon. And if they are acted upon, then that would obviate the moratorium.
I just want to make sure that we are not creating a hardship for any of the patients that are doing this properly. So it doesn't affect someone who is growing those plants in their home for their own personal medical reasons, correct?
No,
or
no, not at all.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've already said and clarified that it doesn't affect current grows, okay? So when we look at this zoning, for this, we will have the choice to exempt, like, you know, commercial and industrial, you know, the central business, residential, whatever. But we could say none in the residential area, none in the central business, but allow commercial and industrial.
Theoretically, that's true. That's possible, but I would honestly think that in this community, and Brian can probably speak to it better than I can, we would probably be more inclined to follow the Byron Township example of making it a home occupation than to say we want all caregivers to go grow in vacant industrial buildings. That's what kind of leads to the accumulation of a number of caregivers in one facility, which is what you're trying to avoid. But all of that is up to the planning commission, you know, and that I'm sure will be thoroughly examined by them and the various alternatives, and then they obviously can come up with what they think would be appropriate.
Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Rob,
Yes.
Menser,
No.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fournier,
Yes.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Hammond.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Agenda 9D, approve Macomb County Economic Development Services. We have a motion, please.
Motion to approve the agreement between the city and Macomb County for economic development services for $700 per month for 3 months, with the cost split evenly between the city and the DDA, and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement.
Moved by Commissioner Mentor. Do I have a support?
Or
Support by Commissioner Fournier. Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
What I'm looking at this agreement, and the agreement specifically says to develop a portfolio of strategic properties located in downtown Mount Clemens. Now, the DDA is asking us to pay half of the cost of this. My feeling is if the city is going to pay half of the cost of this, it should include the entire city. But I understand that this is a pilot. It is very limited for 3 months. But if this agreement is extended, I would expect that if the DDA wants the city to put in money, that it will encompass the entire city and not just the DDA area. The DDA has a very strong budget with Tificaster, and they are quite capable of paying this.
Anyone else?
why isn't the DDA paying for it? We also split this summer, I know, on the chairs and tables and whatnot.
Well, just the Cherry Street Mall improvement, not the cafe tables and things, just to be clear.
So, to get the tables down and whatnot.
Right.
Why isn't the DDA paying for this if it is just downtown?
Mr. Tingley, would you like to?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I know that their board approved the cost sharing at the half. So why they specifically agreed to do that, I'm not really sure.
Mr. Staff presented it, the chairman of the board at that time, Mr. Staff, the chairman of the board, presented it as a cost sharing kind of, that we would ask the city to go into this with them. So that's how it was presented to the board, like Mr. Tingley said. I don't think there was any other reason why, other than they've just been trying to be very cautious about what they're spending, with not knowing what the future. I think everybody's just being cautious. So
this is a benefit to both parties. It's not just a benefit to the Downtown Development Authority. It fits very much in with our goal of establishing a city DDA partnership for economic development.
That's an admirable goal, and it's a goal that we need to further, and it's a goal that hopefully Mr. Tingley can make advances on. But again, my problem here is that it specifically says downtown, and they're asking for city money. The entire city needs some economic development assistance, but because this is a 3-month pilot program and our cost would only be $1,000, I will agree to it today, but I'm warning you, I'm letting you know in advance that past this pilot, unless the agreement includes the entire city of Mount Clemens, I wouldn't be able to approve it.
Well, I would
the
also.
DDA has the budget, the DDA has the money, and I think it's incumbent upon them.
I would also mention to you, Commissioner Mentor, that I would expect the cost per month to be significantly more if we're talking about the entire city than just a concentrated effort for the downtown. So, I mean, I would say we will definitely need to explore that, but we would also need to consider the cost of that. So I would not expect it to be the same price.
Well, and yes, I recognize that, and thank you for pointing it out. But again, if it includes the entire city, then the city can kick money in. If it only includes the downtown DDA area, then the DDA can pay for it in the future. That's my feeling anyway.
I think we should see how the pilot goes and see what comes out of it and what activities come out of it and go from there. So let's give this a.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I do have a question, Mayor Kropp.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammond. Go ahead.
Will this new plan encourage minority businesses ownership in downtown?
Yes, from what I understand, that is a focus for both parties. So yes. Is there any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Menzer,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fournier,
Yes.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Kropp.
Yes. General Business 9E, approve resolution accepting the DNR Trust Fund grant. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the attached resolution accepting the DNR Trust Fund grant for the reconstruction of Jones Street and authorizing the matching fund commitment.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammond. Moved by Commissioner Hammond. Do I have a second?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Fournier. Any questions or comments?
I am going to.
I'm sorry?
Okay, I guess I'll go. I'm going to remind people that it was recommended that we deny this application by Community Development Director Tingley, by our city manager, Mr. Johnson, by our DPS director, Jeff Wood. I believe Mr. Murray might have also agreed with that, and it was also by the city engineers. That park has been a drug-infested homeless encampment that we have been unable to clean up, and it does not allow growth of the YMCA, and they have been talking about growth opportunity for them. It will change what can go in Stilson Field, because eventually that will either be sold or developed. Mr. Stilson has, well, I'll stop there. But it may limit things. And I think that we can make those improvements, as Mr. Wood suggested before, without making this a perpetual park.
I understand your concerns, but also I would hope that Mr. Tingley also has a plan for the park, even if we do approve the funding.
I would also remind there are ways to ask the Michigan DNR to allow us to do other things with the property while also taking this grant. If for some reason within the next years that was an issue. I know that there was a DNR grant on Shady Side, and that didn't seem to be an issue when we looked at it about the zoo. There's been DNR grants at Carnes, and that wasn't an issue when they built the HUD grant on and built the community center. So I just don't believe that it means forever. It doesn't seem to hold true in other instances. So
But they have never requested before the designation of a public park in perpetuity.
Yeah, all of the other contracts also held that language. It's a standard language for a DNR grant. We've already clarified that. There's also ways to get out of the perpetuity. We also clarified that.
Let's ask Mr. Murray that question.
I'm not familiar. We did not handle the Carnes Field matter. My understanding always was that was federal money that David Bonnier was able to secure for the building of that center. I was not aware of any DNR involvement, but it may have happened. But we didn't have anything to do with it, the city. We didn't review that. I will say in this agreement, the way out is that you can request that the DNR release the property if you provide what they determine to be adequate replacement property. That's what this contract, that's what the language calls for.
Does anyone have any other questions?
So I was not, this is Laura Fournier. Initially, I was against this as well because I don't like the language at all about in perpetuity. But we did vote at least 2 meetings ago to go forward with this, I thought. Are we rehashing the whole thing again? Because if we are, I would like to hear from the rest of the city staff as to why we shouldn't take this money. If they really think this is a problem or there is a way to get out of it.
The commission did vote on this on October 19th. The recommendation by city administration was to decline the grant, and that vote failed 4-3.
Okay, so now it seems like we're going over the whole thing again.
Well, the city staff is not going over the whole thing again. Our recommendation is now to move forward with accepting the grant and executing the project agreement.
Exactly. I do believe that that is what we as a team, we as the commission had approved this, so we went forward. And now we're just rehashing the whole thing. And I understand, because I was against it as well, but if the rest of the commission believes that this is the way to go, I accept that the majority of the commission did approve this, and I will work with them.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fournier,
Yes.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Menser.
No.
Okay. On to agenda item 9F, approve funding agreement with SMART for CARES Act funding. Could I have a motion, please?
Move to approve the contract between the City of Mount Clemens and Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transportation, or SMART, and to authorize the appropriate city officials to sign and enter into the agreement.
Moved by Commissioner Fournier. Do I have a second, please?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Campbell. Commissioner Campbell, do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fournier,
Yes.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Menser,
Yes.
Voorhees.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 9G, approval of YMCA programming at Wilson Gym memorandum. Could I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with the YMCA, which allows programming at the Wilson's Gym, and to authorize the mayor and the city clerk to sign the memorandum of understanding.
Moved by Commissioner Hammond. Do we have a support?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Fournier. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So
Mensah.
I have a couple of things. How does the governor's shutdown that she announced last night affect the gathering of children in an enclosed building? That's my first question, because I think that her order last night does not allow this at this point for the next 3 weeks. Second, I don't see anything in this agreement about cleanup, like, somebody to sweep the floors and take the trash out, but also there's nothing in here about a COVID cleanup, sanitizing the building, Tuesday night or, after the children leave, and then Thursday after the children leave. So I'm wondering who's responsible then for locking and securing the building?
Mr. Johnson, do you want to address those concerns?
Okay, let me start with the first issue, which is the Department of Health and Human Services order that applies to the next 3 weeks. It's actually not a governor's order. Yes, you're absolutely right. Between effective Wednesday for 3 weeks, that activity would not be permitted. It's also shutting down the activities that we've got going on at the community center with the Jazzercise group. And it's also specifically shutting down the ice arena. The actual contract is essentially the same agreement that we've been using with the Y for the Y on the Fly programs. You're right, it does not specifically address cleanup, but it's understood with the YMCA that that's going to be their responsibility.
And
locking up would be their responsibility too.
And their responsibility would also be COVID approved sanitation.
Yes, ma'am.
So do we need to amend this agreement because it shall remain in place from November 3rd, 2020 to December 17th? Do we need to amend this to say something about after, the governor's orders? We don't know what she's going to do, what's going to happen in 3 weeks.
No. No. The agreement specifically says that excluding days schools not in session, half days, seasonal breaks, unless modified and agreed upon 24 hours prior notice to the scheduled date. Mr. Johnson can always notify them that we are not going to pursuant to the Health and Human Resources Executive Order that they will not be allowed in there over that 3-week period. We don't have to the agreement.
Okay, and just one final question then. This agreement goes through December of 2021 on Tuesdays. We will have an election next year, and Wilson Gym is a polling station. So do we give notice to them that it will be unavailable that day?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call, please.
It's 8 o'clock.
That wasn't me. Fournier,
Yes.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Agenda 9H, approval of purchases and payments of invoices.
Move to approve purchases and payment of invoices as presented.
Moved by Commissioner Campbell. Do I have a second? Supported by Commissioner Hammond. Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fournier.
Yes.
Seeing nothing on the consent agenda, we will move on to City Manager Johnson's report. Mr. Johnson.
Okay, let's start with COVID-19. There's actually quite a bit of things have happened since this was written. We do have 3 people affected right now, 2 reported positive test results this morning. So we have 2 people that actually have the disease right now and 1 more in quarantine. There are basically 2 different state mandates, relatively new state mandates that come into play. One is came out of MyOSHA, and the other one comes out of Health and Human Services, which is the one the governor talked about yesterday. The big issue for us is whether we should be sending staff home at this point. There's actually a requirement in the MyOSHA that says employees who are capable of doing their work from home must do their work from home. For us, the issue is that almost all of our office staff can perform some or most or almost all, in fact, of their jobs remotely, but few, if any, can do all of their job responsibilities remotely. And the big issue becomes you can't take care of customers at the counter. So if we're going to send people home, we're going to have to close City Hall again, like we did for a couple months this spring. And we're looking at that closely, and we may come to a decision to do that before this week is out. Hybrid meetings, we've already talked about at the last meeting. We obviously don't think it would be a good idea, and now based on the latest orders, it wouldn't even be legal. The branding RFP is essentially complete. We will be distributing a preliminary copy for vendor comments this week. The official copy will be distributed via the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network, MITN, and the city's purchasing office. Telephones, for something that ended up in approving purchases and payments, we put an awful lot of work into the telephone report. And I want to give some credit to the people who did it. I particularly want to thank Terry Lucci, Jennifer Giolotti, Rob Crampton and Jim St. James from High Tech, Dan Vasquez from AEI Solutions, and Christopher Diarikis from AT&T for their efforts. This is actually going to be a significant change, and we think a major improvement in our telephone service. And I'm going to let the mayor make a comment about our telephone service as it is now. I see her nodding.
Yeah, I too am really looking forward to this improvement. That the service, for not being that old, really, in terms of when we installed the current service, it's practically archaic. It's very difficult even for Nikki to transfer a call to my office without it falling into some sort of abyss that we have no idea where the call went. So it's been a challenge, to say the least. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay. So I thank all of you for voting for that. CARES grant. We learned this week that we're going to be receiving an extra $170,000 in additional funds from the CARES grant through the county for compensation paid to sheriff's deputies working the Mount Clemens substation on a contract with the city. One of the issues I've had with the CARES grant is the Treasury did allow us to start reporting 100% of wages for public safety employees, but we actually qualified for way more than what I actually had expended in terms of fire and in terms of direct expenditures for COVID-related expenses. By being able to count what we've paid to the county, it'll let us qualify for, will let us actually qualify for everything that's been allocated to us. Parks and Rec Board met on Tuesday. They're preparing to survey Mount Clemens residents on recreation needs. That was the primary topic of discussion. The board also discussed the status of the Carnes Center, also known as the Jermaine Jackson Community Center. And at the meeting, board member Thomas Barnes announced plans for a youth kickball league this summer, which I'm excited about. I think it's exactly what we need. This is to go at Shady Side, and it's exactly the kind of programming that we need there, because it's something that's going to cost very, very little to put on, and it has the potential to reach a large number of youth. I'm going to call on Patrick to announce the video schedule for the State of the City address as to when that's going to be shown on the cable station and when it'll be available on the website.
Thank you. The playback schedule will be on the Government Access channel every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 7 a.m., 12:30, and 7 p.m. through the end of December. And the link to the YouTube should be available on Thursday. We'll have a link on the city's website.
Thank you, Patrick. And that concludes the manager's report.
Does anyone have any questions for City Manager Johnson?
Yes. You should know that. City Manager Johnson, with this nice COVID refund, basically, are we want to consider some kind of gratuity, honorarium, hazard pay, something for our employees?
The City Commission made a decision on that several months ago, which we've followed. We have paid hazard pay to firefighters and to bus drivers only. We have not paid hazard pay to DPW workers or any other employees that have had some exposure in the line of work.
Yeah, well, we didn't know we were getting $170,000 back either, so it might be something that we want to have a conversation about.
Commissioner Mentor, if you would like it to be discussed and on the agenda, I think you know how to do that.
There you go. Let's put it on the agenda, City Manager Johnson.
Well, I mean, you know how to go ahead and work on that, right?
I think so.
Perfect. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Johnson? Hearing none. This is the second portion or second opportunity in the meeting that we have public participation. We ask that you give us your first name so we can create a line. And then when it is your turn, we ask that you give us your full name, your residential address, and your you abide by our 2-minute rule for this section of the public participation. Is there anyone who would like to be considered for public participation?
I would like to be Mayor. Thomas Barnes.
Thomas, is there anyone else who would like to be considered? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Barnes, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I would like to say,
sorry, can you give us your full name, and your address, please?
Thomas Barnes, 291 Jones Street, Mount Clemens. I would like to say congratulations to the mayor on a very wonderful State of the City address. For those that were there and those who have the opportunity to watch it, it seems as if we are heading all in the right direction. And considering the fact that we hired a city manager in the month that COVID got announced, and we're still heading in the right direction, says a lot about the current people who are in leadership positions in our city. You guys are working hard, and I just want to let you know that we as residents appreciate you. As to speak about the Jones Street project, I could sense that there was some hesitation in some commissioners' voices about this project, but doing nothing never solves the problem. It is good to finally see this project happening and to see some added activity in that area. Hopefully having families and people congregating there and using those facilities will then start to deter all of that negative energy from over there. So thank you so very much for all of your hard work, the city staff and this administration and the former administration who have been working on this for some time. It's a great thing to see come to the city of Mount Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. We'll move on to commissioners' comments. Mr. Voorhees. Mr. Voorhees.
Yes, I have a shout out to the Public Service Department. They have turned around and came out and cleaned up the leaves in the gutter, and it looks great. Then, of course, Sunday night we had this terrific windstorm, and a lot of heavy-duty branches came down. They were out this morning and ground those up and cleaned everything up. Just a great job, Jeff, and make sure you tell your staff that they did a super job. And with that, once a Clemite, always a Clemite.
Thank you. Commissioner Goodenough.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
I want to say the same thing that Commissioner Voorhees did. Now that I'm retired, I can see what's going on all day long, and I watch the one truck go through and sweep up the leaves, and the next thing you know, the sweeper came down, and they were very conscientious of the cars that were parked in the street, which I would have ran over, but they did an excellent job, and thank you to their hard work. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Fournier.
Thank you. I want to give a shout out to our fire department. I personally had a medical emergency today, and those guys were here in a nanosecond and not only took care of things that had to be done, they were also very, very, very considerate of me, because unfortunately, as my husband went off to the hospital, and he will be okay, so I'm nothing looking for pity there or anything. He'd kill me if he knew I was saying this. But those firefighters made sure, since I could not go to the hospital with them and I could not go in that hospital, they made sure that I knew what happened and that I got callbacks. And I can't tell you how relieved and appreciative I am for their care and their concern at a moment when I was a total panic. So thank you very, very much. Our firefighters are truly a great asset to this city. The other request that I have is this whole marijuana situation causes more interest than just about anything I can think of that we've covered in the years I've been on the Planning Commission or the commission itself. I think we need a workshop, and I think we need it very soon. We have new commissioners. We need to understand how this medical marijuana business is moving forward. We just need to, and if this ordinance can be done in less than 180 days, I think we should aim for that. Things take so long to get done in government, and I'd like to be the group that moves it ahead faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hammond.
I would like to say job well done, Mayor Crop, on the State of the City address. And also I want to wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Be kind, be thoughtful, but most of all, be thankful. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Mentor.
So with this new lockdown that has been, visited upon our state, our restaurants in the city are really going to be hurting. So I would encourage everyone to make a carry out, get a carry out from one or more restaurants, since we can't eat in anymore. Let's utilize our small businesses. Let's, help out where we can. And I would also remind people, next weekend is the Thanksgiving. Remember, there's always a small business Saturday, the Saturday after. Let's shop where we can. The Nest has all kinds of goods and things, to be used for gifts, and so does Max and Ollie's, and you can always give gift certificates to restaurants because they're not going to be closed forever. So let's keep in mind our small businesses. And I wanted to remind you, our library is still open. You can still put books on hold. You can call the librarians for information, and they're just going to go to curbside service, which is, kind of cool. You can order all your stuff and you can just go, they can bring it right out to the car for you. So make sure that you continue to use the businesses and services that our city offers. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank the staff who helped with the State of the City address, especially Nikki Ratuznik. She did the great PowerPoint presentation, and it was really a good group effort, and I appreciate all the help. I too would like to just mention to people that we are changing the instead of having our traditional tree lighting ceremony this Friday, because of the new orders that state an outdoor gathering cannot have more than 25 people, we want to keep everyone safe. So we have decided to change it to come downtown, see Santa, enjoy the lights, but we're going to make it a drive-through event. So pull onto Main Street and come down Macomb Place, while Santa will be waiting at the fountain stage to hand a package that has some candy canes and some other treats in it for the car, and enjoy the beautiful tree and the Christmas decorations of downtown. It might also be a great time to order a carryout and pick that up while you're in downtown. Our stores will also be open that evening. If we could have everyone following our city Facebook page, Twitter, or Instagram, we, especially in the next 3 weeks, are going to be promoting with lots of information on each of the businesses that are open during this time. We're going to be sharing specials that they're going to be running. A lot of the businesses are going to be running specials for Friday for that tree lighting. So you should be able to find all of that information on the city and the downtown Mount Clemens Facebook page, Twitter, or Instagram. So please, if you're not following those social media, it's a great way to stay in tune with with all of our businesses. Of course, everyone, please be careful during the holidays. We know our COVID numbers, and we, of course, want to be together with our families, but because of our COVID numbers, we're asking that everyone cooperate and not be indoors with members that are not of your own household. So hopefully everyone abides by that for Thanksgiving, and then we bring down all of these COVID numbers. I, of course, want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving as well. And I know that I am extremely grateful to represent the city and to have this opportunity. So thank you very much to all of you as residents. And that's all I have for this evening. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mayor Crop, I move that we adjourn.
Moved by Commissioner Voorhees. Do I have a support? Supported by Commissioner Campbell. Roll call, please.
Hammond,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fournier,
Yes.
Signa.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving and a great night. Take care.
Good night.
Same to you.